This is Stronger Than My Father with Marcus Minis.
Welcome to another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast. I am your host, Marcus Minis. Stronger Than My Father podcast is your most trusted podcast that's centered around restoring fatherhood. Our guest on this show has been affected positive or negatively through fatherhood, so we want to learn more about their story. Hey, I can't do this alone. I have to thank my producer, Mr. Jim McCarthy at jmvos.com. If you're in need of a podcast producer or if you're in need of some voiceover work, reach out to my friend Jim McCarthy at jmvos.com. And as you see, I'm not in my normal studio, so I'm at Jim McCarthy's studio again for another week of Strong in My Father episode. So thank you, Jim, for allowing us to use your studio. Let's get to work. Hey, my guest today is a friend I've been knowing for, almost 2 years now. Golf coach, one that pushes me hard to learn how to play golf, and just a great all-around friend. So I'd like to thank my friend, Mr. Scott Merritt, for coming on the show. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So you know what my podcast is about. It's centered around fatherhood. And I know me and you talked in the past about your fatherhood story. So I wanted to get you on to learn more about your story, how it shaped you to the man that you are today, and how you're using tools to help you navigate through marriage, life, and what tools that, you wish you could have probably gotten from your father. So tell my guests a little bit about you, and then we're all going to delve into your profession as well at the end.
Sounds great. Well, I have a dad, or I had a dad, so we all have that in common, I hope.
Yeah. And
my dad worked on the railroad.
Okay.
And he was always gone, so he was always absent. I've got 3 children myself, all adults. I actually now have 3 grandchildren, and one more on the way. And so when I think back to my kids, my parents divorced when I was about 8 years old, and my mom had us first. Okay. She was the full-time resident parent, I guess is how I want to say that. So we lived with my mom for a couple of years, maybe not quite a year. Then my dad took us over. But the one memory I have as a kid in that situation is sitting there with the plastic or paper bags at that time, full of our clothes for the weekend, waiting for Dad to show up. And he never did. I shouldn't say he never did, but we'd sit there, and every car that drove by the house, we're looking out the window, thinking it was going to be Dad. And there was always an excuse: train derailment. Situation that kept him away. Years later, we found out that it wasn't such a thing as a train derailment. He was partying with his friends in Vegas or something. Yeah. So that became that issue. And the thing I took from that is to be present in my own children's life. I didn't always succeed. I did work, and a lot of times on the weekends I was working. But if you were to ask my kids what their life was like growing up, they're going to remember the times on the ski hill, learning how to ski every weekend. I took them to work with me, and they skied every weekend.
Well, they lucky you.
We were together. Yeah, they were. My ex-wife, their mother called me the ice cream dad, because I was the guy that every time I had him on the weekend, because I only had him on the weekend when we got divorced. Yeah. And my youngest at the time, he was the same age I was, 7 years old, 7 years old when we got divorced. And I made it a focus to be as involved as I could possibly be. Okay. And went to all the events that I could go to, drove hours to make that happen. They lived in Denver, or I lived in Denver. They lived in Vail still. So I had to make that trek up the mountain to get them and to visit them and see them. And then when they did move back to Denver, I drove all the way across the city to be there.
Well, go ahead. No, I'm going to ask you, the question is you mentioned in the beginning about the absence. How does that make a child feel at a younger age? Is that considered trauma for a young child who excited to see, okay, my dad's coming? Because every child wants a father. And so wants that father presence in their lives. And so they're excited. Dad's coming. And he don't show up. How does that make a child feel when that happens?
Less than.
Wow.
Not important. So you can call it trauma, I guess. When people think of trauma, they think of accidents, things that happened to them they had no control over. I certainly didn't have any control over my parents' relationship.
Yeah.
The lack of relationship that we had with our father growing up.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, I don't want to make my dad look like a horrible person.
Yeah.
As we got older and he could relate to us better, he became a bigger and more prominent presence in our life. But those childhood years, those formative years
that you can remember.
Where you learn how to be a dad, where you learn how to be, that was absent.
Yeah, because me, like, my kids get excited. Like, if I say we're going to go do something, like today, I say, hey, we're going to go have lunch at Sam's place. They're looking forward to that. So even though I'm tired and stuff like that, I still make it happen for my kids because I don't want to disappoint them. But I've read several books. I've listened to several authors talk about the childhood experience. And I had a friend of mine who told me that dad promised to pick him up, sit on the porch. And he said, I'm still that kid on the porch waiting for my dad to pick me up. And he's in his 60s now. So his mentality is that basically saying that I wish I'm still waiting for my father to be there. His father's dead and deceased now. But it happened to my wife. Same thing happened to my wife. Father promised to pick her up. Hey, dad's coming. And he doesn't show up. And so now you say you feel less than and you remember that. And so how did that help your development moving forward into fatherhood? How did that help you? Did it just say, okay, I'm never going to do that to my kids. I'm going to always be there. Or did you were just mad, angry? Because usually times when fathers are not there, kids, adolescent kids are angry, they're mad, and they start doing other things. So is that some of your life story, or is it more of, hey, I was able to get through it and I moved to the next thing?
Yes, there's a couple of different ways you could go, right?
Okay.
Wanting my dad's attention and his admiration and his love, I guess is the way to say it.
Yeah.
I did it. I was the most boring kid you'll ever meet.
With your personality, I don't see how that could be.
Well, in that way, I meant that I wasn't out running around doing bad things.
Yeah. My
mom was working 3 jobs to get us fed. I had 3 other brothers. My oldest to youngest was only 5 years apart, 4 boys. You want to talk about trauma? We put our mom through hell. My dad, on the other hand, he had another family he was taking care of. So we saw him every now and then. He wasn't the most present person in our life. And it was always... So if my stepbrother and sister ever see this, I don't want them to get mad at me. But it was always Kim and Jess and the boys. Yeah. So the boys we were all grouped together. Yeah. So my mom didn't have a curfew for us.
Wow.
My brothers all dropped out of high school at an early age, and their goal was to help my mom bring money into the house.
Got it.
That didn't always work out. So my oldest brother was always in and out of trouble with cops. My other brother was running around doing his thing. My little brother dropped out after I was done. And so I was the only one to graduate high school, only one that went to college, only one that graduated college in those guys. Yeah. And I was looking for that recognition from my parents, from my dad and my mom.
The validation.
Yeah. Validation is a great word. Go. My dad did come to my high school graduation.
Well, that's good, because I've heard a lot of stories that dad didn't show up.
My mom didn't.
Whoa, because she had to work?
She didn't have to work that day, but that's another long story.
What? So, see, you remember all those things, because I remember that.
It was only a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, so. But I think just for you to be one, say I graduated from high school, what gave you that motivation? Was it just watching your brothers not make errors and mistakes and say, hey, I don't want to go through that? And those consequences, so I'm going to try to go through, I'm going to go through high school, I'm going to go through college. What pushed you to do that?
So there's a couple of possible answers there too. Again, trying to get that recognition from my dad. Yeah. My dad didn't graduate high school either. My mom didn't graduate high school. So that's kind of like the barometer. The bare minimum expectation I felt was to graduate high school. Yeah. The people I hung out with, and this is really key to everything in life, right? Yeah. The people you hang out with are going to determine how high and how far you go. Yeah. The people I hung out with were all in school. Yeah. The girls I was interested in dating were all in school. Yeah. The people I didn't want to be around with dropped out. So I didn't have any respect for them, and I didn't have any desire to be them, even if they were making money and forging a good path. Yeah. And many of those guys are doing great today. Yeah. But that's not where I wanted to start.
Well, see, that's a good thing you said that. It's really the people who you're around that pushes you. When I was struggling in college, some of my friends, who I'm still friends with today, they was at TSU doing a thing. And I was like, man, I want to do that. And so it just took me a while to get myself together to go back to college. But when I went back in my 30s, I was like, look, I'm going to TSU because my brother went there, my friends went there. That's why I went to TSU. But from high school going into adulthood now, what gave you the tools? What were some tools that you had that you feel like your father did or did not give you to go into fatherhood? Because you say you had 3 kids, right?
I got 3.
So what helped develop you into fatherhood?
That's a good question too.
Yeah. I ask good questions,
yeah,
man.
You do. So I go off to college. Yeah. I grew up in Denver. Yeah. And I went off to Salina, Kansas to go to school. I
don't know what it is.
I wanted to play. It's smack dab in the middle of the state on I-70 and 35.
All right.
You're going to go either way. If you're going north, you're going to run through. You're going east or west, you're running through Salina, Kansas. Mm-hmm. And I went there to play football.
Okay.
Went there my freshman year. My sophomore year, my girlfriend who I had in college or high school, she came out too.
Okay.
There's not a lot to do in Kansas, Marcus, and she got pregnant. And
while you was in college?
While I was in college, that's where my daughter came from.
Okay.
And in a hurry, I had a beautiful head of hair, everything. And when she got pregnant, and I realized the realization that now another human being is relying on me and the decisions I make to live, survive, and hopefully thrive.
Yeah.
So the tools that I did not have was really knowing how to go about doing all the stuff and running a house, because I never had that responsibility.
Yeah. Let me ask you this.
In a hurry, we had to.
Well, see, that's the thing. And you, 19, 20 when it happened?
19 years old.
And a lot of young men abandon. They leave, and some do stay. What helped you realize? You just said, hey, I got to see it. I got to make good decisions. Try to avoid the consequences, which is the name of my book that's coming out, to help dads make good decisions. So what helped you then? Was it just saying, I'm not going to put my daughter through what I went through and be there for my girlfriend and make that happen? What clicked in your head once you knew, hey, she's pregnant and what I have to do?
Well, I was scared to death. That's for sure. So her mom and dad came out to visit us.
Yeah.
And going back to what I said about the people around you. Yeah. Her dad, I still respect a great deal today. Mm-hmm. He sat me down and said, Scott, this is your chance. You can walk out that door and you never have to worry about it, because I will make sure everything's okay.
That was the girlfriend
that
father.
My father-in-law. He became my father-in-law when we got married. He gave me that out. Why
would he give you an out?
Because he knew that he didn't want me to 5 years later, 10 years later, walk away.
Got it.
So he's saying you can do it now, or you're in this for the long haul. And I could not picture a life without my child.
Well, that's good,
and I
man.
still can't. So
fatherhood is just such a big, powerful thing that I think a lot of people ignore a lot. And so that's why I do the podcast, is just to bring the awareness, because it's a real thing. You know, when my first son was born, I was the same thing. I'm holding him like, I got to protect you. Yeah. And I'm still that way. He's 15, tall as me now. He almost tall as me. He's 5'10" now. But for me, is that I didn't want him to go through some of the things I went through. So I'm like, all right, I got to protect you. And so now I'm beginning to loose the grips of my hands to my son to let him live some. I'm going to get him a part-time job this summer, just so he can get used to being around people and working. That's going to be hard. But I have to let my son, and I've done several of these podcasts where people tell me, hey, you overprotective of your kid, you're going to ruin them because you're overprotective. So were you really overprotective of your daughter when she was born? Like, you wouldn't let nobody near her, watching her and stuff like that. Were you that overprotective dad, or you that dad more like, all right, I'm going to let you kind of live some?
A little bit of both. So kind of in the middle, I guess.
Okay.
We were very, very, so like her mother was in a very strict household.
Okay.
I was not.
Yeah.
And so together we kind of met in the middle and created hopefully a good opportunity for our kids to thrive.
Yeah.
But we were very protective in the beginning. Mm-hmm. The first ones always get the worst of it. Right? And so you're making sure that here's how this works, here's how that works.
Yeah.
And then my other two are boys. So you also treat your daughter differently than you're going to treat your sons.
Yeah.
But it's funny, thinking back about how important fatherhood is. Everybody on this planet from day one is trying to figure out how to live forever.
Yeah.
And so you do that through your kids.
Yeah. Well,
So
that's a great thing to jump into. A lot of people say you live through your kids. My 15-year-old is the opposite. He's the same as me at 15. Same as me at 15. We went out to eat Sunday, and I said, "Let me see your phone." And he's texting this girl, "I love you so much," and stuff like that. And we didn't have phones when I was 15. I was writing notes. And I'm sitting here saying, my son is sending this girl all these "I love you" text messages and stuff. And we're eating, and I'm looking at my wife, and I'm like, what do we do with my son doing this stuff? And she was like, "Well, you don't text no woman. You text me, you love me." And so we both have to. That's the thing about fatherhood. I think I'm struggling is that how do I prepare to let my son go? But like you said, that's a whole nother topic. So, but that's still, I'm laughing about that because I was being overprotective on Sunday. I was like, "Why are you texting this girl?" And because he didn't tell me. He didn't say, "Dad," But once you give kids this, then I realize it's a whole nother thing. So, but still me trying to be the protective dad, but it kills me because he's a split image of me. That affection I had at 15 for girls, he's the split image of me, and I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do, but let's talk about...
What did your dad do with you?
What did my dad do with me? He gave me advice not to get so close to... Like, my first girlfriend, I was really close. And like you said, if she ever hear this episode, because I never told these stories. But I think once that breakup happened, I wasn't as close. And so my dad, he was just really protecting me, just telling me, don't go so far in and you do something crazy when you get your heart broken. So I had to prepare for my son's first heartbreak because it's going to happen. And so for me, I try to tell you before the problem happened. That's what I do. I'm like, "Son, you're going to have heartbreak. It's going to happen. Here's what you do." So I'm trying to prepare him before the problem happens. And I don't know if that's smart or not, or just let him go through the problem. And then when he come to me, then I tell him what he needs to do. I'm trying to prevent the problem. And that's how I operate sometimes. And I've heard a lot of people on the podcast say, "Mark, you just got to let things happen." And that's hard for me to do for my son.
It's a control thing. You want him to avoid the pain that you went through.
Exactly.
But until he goes through that pain, he won't even appreciate what you went through.
Jam, this better not turn into another therapy session. I'm telling you this now, man.
It's like the old adage, like the Indian proverb, right?
Yeah.
You could tell them not to touch the fire. But when you let them touch the fire, they know not to touch it.
Yeah. I think just for me, it's just, I don't want him to go through the things I went through. Mm-hmm. So if I give you an answer, when I look at him, I don't want him to go through it. But does he need to go through it? Yeah. I just don't want him to do it. So that's for me. But I'm interviewing you, man.
You're going to wrap the kids in bubble wrap and let them go experience the world.
Man, it's just, it's just protection. And I know that's not the smartest thing all the time. He has to live, So when I saw him with his cell phone Sunday, I'm just like, he's living. He's texting girls. He's at that age now where going to have feelings and emotions and all that. And I have to be prepared for that. And I'm just not yet, prepared to have that talk about sex and stuff like that. When do I sit down with my son and I talk about that? So I need that parent advice to you. Before?
Because if you wait till after, you're having a 19-year-old kid with a kid.
Yeah. Well,
so
I don't want to scare him, but my scares are threats. Like, you bet not. And so that's the thing I have to prepare for him because he's 15 now. He'll be 16 next year. So he's going to have these feelings and stuff like that. And I have to be able to prepare to sit down and have a talk with him. And I don't think it should be my wife doing it. I think it should be me sitting down with you, man to man. This is what you need to do. That's why I always say father is important, because if you don't have that talk, kids gonna just go ahead and go crazy.
Yeah.
But
because you as smart as you think you are,
yeah,
and as much as you think you know, you at 14, 15, 16 years old, you start experiencing freedoms, emotions, hormonal things you weren't prepared for, and nobody's telling you about it. Except for the kids you're hanging out with in school.
Wow.
Which is where you're gonna get into trouble.
So you think it's just important for that dad to be able to sit down and have that one-to-one talk with you, not to go out here. So what should they tell a kid? Let's go for a prime example. What did you tell your kids? Because I gotta get some advice from you, man. Did you sit down and have it with your sons? That talk?
We did.
Yeah,
we did. And I found that the kids that they were with, and they were doing stuff that I didn't even imagine. That maybe I was protected because I didn't experience the same things growing up. So, and. Frankly, those girls scared the hell out of me, so I avoided them. So, you really need to. So we all go through the biology thing, and you learn that in school. Most schools have sex ed, but it's so clinical. There's no emotional involvement, so you don't know what that means.
Okay.
So it is important for a dad to sit down with his son and explain how and why it works the way it does, and how your emotions play a strong role in it.
Yeah.
Your son at 15 years old is sending "I love you" texts to girls.
Yeah.
I told a girl when I was 14 and 15-year-olds I love them. They break up with me, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going to tell them I love them anymore.
Yeah.
Now,
That's
hopefully
me.
that doesn't happen to MJ, but you're going to have those things that take place in your life you're going to learn from. Yeah. But you have to be involved. And I would say this too. I know this is about fatherhood, but a mom needs to talk to her son too in a real way.
Hold up. What was my wife?
Because she's going to... So I was raised by a single mom.
Okay.
Right? And so my mom gave me the whole, this is how you respect and treat women.
Okay, I got that.
My dad never told me that.
Okay.
I witnessed at a young age my dad beating on my mom. So that's not what I want to take away from a parental relationship. I don't want to be in that situation as the dad. I don't get my way, so I'm going to force my way.
Yeah.
And so learning, especially as it comes to relationships, where that line is.
Yeah.
When she says no, what that means.
Yeah. Yeah.
What your responsibility and the amount of respect you have for another person. So as you have teenage boys, and they think that because they said certain things that gives me permission
to have sex with you.
Yeah, absolutely not the way it works. I don't care. My mom said, I don't care how far you are along. And she says no one time, you're done.
You're done. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. I'm sitting back thinking, I don't know if my dad had that. If he did, I can't remember. I've heard other talks he had with us, I can remember vividly. The sex talk, I can't really remember him sitting down, or my mom. I knew when we had a friend that got pregnant, and my mom set us down and told us, I think I was in 8th grade, that you better not do X, Y, and Z. So, but I can't remember my daddy sitting me down, because I'm very close to him. So, he gave me other talks about relationships and he told me as I got older, don't take everything I said so serious. Like, I take any word he tells me, I take it serious. Like, I take
gospel truth, right?
Yeah, and so some of it was rough, like getting close to women, and when I had my first heartbreak and stuff like that, and then it just turned me to to who I am now. That's the things that my dad talked to me. But for you, and thanks for that sex advice. So I had to prepare for that with my boy. And my wife, she'll hear this because she is in every episode. So she's going to be like, all right, when are we going to have this talk with MJ?
It's on the calendar already.
Oh, man, I'm sitting here, you throwing me off. And I'm sitting here having to talk to my son about this. Because I guess when I saw those text messages, it wasn't nothing bad. Because he wouldn't have a phone no more. But it was just seeing him show his emotions. And I didn't know myself had all that in him. Like, what helped him get a picture of a heart, and the heart had the little shiny things around the heart. And I'm just like, how did he know how to find that? So I'm like, how the heck he know how to find that? And then you put a heart, how do you know this at 15, how to text stuff like that? I didn't teach him that. So how did he know?
So it goes back to the people you're around. Those kids are teaching them.
I'm about to get that phone from him.
Yeah. So somebody sent it to him and he goes, where did you find it? How do I do that? How do I make it? He's probably asking it. And this is why it's important to have a relationship with your kids as a father. He's asking his friends, hey, I like this person. How do I share that emotion with this person? And they're like, well, have fun with it. Use the emotions, the emoticons. What do they call those? I don't know.
Emojis, yeah.
Emojis. Use that stuff because that's the best way and most fun way to do it and to be impactful.
Yeah,
so they think that's how you're going to communicate to a girl at school and make them look cool. And then if she doesn't take it the right way, well, I was just playing.
Well, I think for me is that whenever we have it talk more, because I wasn't angry with him on Sunday. I was more like shocked. Like, my son's doing this.
Well, because he's still in your eyes, he's a little boy.
Yeah, there you go. And he's still that young child. And I know that in 3 years, I have to prepare to let him go if he decides to go to college or wherever he wants to go. So let me ask you this for raising your boys. What were some things that you put in them to help them and guide them along the way? What were some things you sat down and talked to them about? Some good tools you put in them. Even for kids, you can put in them and they still can make mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, I wasn't perfect. I want an angel.
I don't have a Father of the Year award in my closet anywhere. I guarantee that. So so many times, and a frustrating thing, and I think the key is to be persistent and consistent. Yeah. And I wasn't always consistent. I'll be honest about that. But you want them to understand the consequences of a result of their choice. Yeah. So you want them to think through it before they make that rash decision. Yeah. What's this going to result in? And so impacts as far as relationships go, what's going to happen if I make this choice versus the other choice? And then first and foremost, being respectful of the other person. And so as they go through life, how am I impacting other people? And I see how some of the good and bad is taking place with my kids today. They're in their 30s. Yeah. And they're raising children and the impacts that they're having on their kids. Hopefully some of the things they learn. And unfortunately, my youngest son is a good example of this. He goes, well, I got to do it my way because that's the only way I'm going to learn.
That's a tough thing.
And and then you're watching from afar sometimes. You're taking a step back and like, this is like watching a train wreck. I know it's coming, and you can't get him out of the way.
What do you do when you tell a child, tell you that I'm going to do it my way? Well, here's the thing. My mother told me that when you're 18, you grow. My mother told me that. She said, you grow. You go make your own decisions, make your own choices. But whatever choice you live with, you got to deal with it. And she said, if you go to jail, don't call us. And that was the only thing she told us. She's like, if you go to jail, don't call us because we're not bailing you out. And so navigating from 18 till 25 till I got married was a journey. I learned ups and downs, peaks and valleys. I wasn't an angel.
But you didn't go to jail.
No, I didn't go to jail because I know my parents weren't going to bail us out. So I didn't do anything bad enough to go to jail. So I didn't do anything bad enough. I think I was still not so much afraid of my father. I just knew that the things, I was always around him. I never seen him go to jail. So all I knew was work. But 18 till, and really from 18 to like 32, I was trying to find what I'm supposed to do in this world. I didn't know. You know, my father's a great father, but he didn't know much about going to college. So I struggled until I started teaching Sunday school at church, and I knew I had a gift to teach. And then I knew I had other gifts, like now, you know, recording a podcast. So I think those things will help me out as well. But for you now, do you still see yourself giving your kids fatherhood advice in them 30s? Or do you just kind of just say, hey, you grown, you go? Or do you still feel that peace to, I don't know if you can protect your kids at 30, but do you still have that unction? Or is it now going through the grandkids now?
You try to do both. But so even when they're 30, so I have my middle son. He struggles with some issues, and he needs more protection than my 31-year-old does. Yeah. I have a different relationship with them today. Now the advice they seek is, you know, what's your opinion on this? What do you think I should do? Yeah. And I share with my 31. Well, you didn't listen before. Why are you listening now? But he always wants to. He just wants to hear a different opinion.
Yeah.
And then he'll hopefully use that and make better choices. With my grandchildren, I've had a much different relationship with them. I'm not physically there.
Yeah.
They live in Iowa and Nebraska, and I'm working, so sadly I don't see them as often as I'd like to see them.
Yeah.
But the great thing about technology today is I'm able to. I've seen both of my grandchildren grow.
Yeah.
And I just had another one born on Friday, so I've got another grandchild to watch grow.
Yeah.
And it's exciting for me. More fun than watching your because it's less responsibility.
Yeah, everybody said the grandkids is a whole lot better. So God, I don't know. I may have to put you back on the chair and tell me about how to handle grandkids because I haven't even thought about. God, I don't know what my oldest son gonna do. I just don't know because my oldest son had a real affectionate heart. He's just like his daddy when I was 15, just like me, and it's killing me today. I just want to protect him. Like, all right, son, you can be in love, but don't be too deep in love.
Is there such a thing?
It is. So tell him that. Look. So my talking to is aggressive. Like, look.
It sounds like it.
Look, we ain't having this. It ain't that. Son, it's just gonna be okay. Hey, we ain't doing that. So I don't know if that's the best approach. I just know I'll tell my wife I only can do in fatherhood what my dad did with me. Mm-hmm. I don't know no other way. And so his way was tough. He tried to protect me. And because he knew I love girls, and he knew, hey, you're going to be falling deep in love. And he had a friend whose son killed himself because a girl broke up with him. He hung himself. So when I had my first heartbreak at 18, my dad was really concerned about me. He said, here's what he told me, and then we're going to go into Exodus HR and close it out. He told me, this is my father, this one, I'm going to put it in my book. He said, never get too close to a woman that if she leaves you, you'll do something stupid. He told me that. He said, I love your mama. If she left me tomorrow, it'll hurt, but I can make it. So basically just taught me where, I see where you have domestic violence a whole lot. Never hit my wife because I don't know what move she's going to make. So I just don't know what move she'll make because she could kill me. She could snap. And I have an undergrad in psychology, so I just learned try not to make certain moves because I don't know what move you're going to make.
Yeah,
so
don't
I
push
can't,
the button.
Yeah, you just don't know. So my thing is that if I hit you, I'm running because I'm scared. I'm not going to go to sleep because it ain't going to end well. So I already know what that consequence is. Don't know exactly going to happen, but I know what it is. But that, maybe I took it too hard because I never really got close. After the first heartbreak, I never really got close. But marriage has helped me understand that you have a person that's got your back no matter what. And that's kind of what Toya is. She got my back. Do we always get along? Heck no. Ain't no marriage you going to get along. Anybody tell me you got the perfect marriage, they lying to you. So I tell people
perfect for them.
They lying to you. Ain't nothing perfect. You're going to have problems. So I tell anybody in marriage, you're going to have problems. You just got to figure out how to deal with it. But that was the advice he gave me. And I don't know if I'm going to tell my son that. I don't know. Because I don't want him to be like his daddy. Because I have a stony heart at times when it comes to women. I do. Because of that heartbreak.
I think that the key thing, you want your son to be able to explore the depths of his emotions.
Yeah.
You want him to have a solid foundation that he knows he's worth more than the relationship he's in.
Dang, that's a good advice right there.
Because the reason your friend committed suicide.
Well, it wasn't my friend, it was my dad's friend's son.
So the reason that happened is because his entire self-worth was wrapped into the relationship he had with that girl. And when that girl rejected him, he felt worthless. And when you feel worthless, you take rash decisions.
He had his daddy. So I'm thinking,
and that's as Marcus is growing up and you're teaching Marcus Jr. how to live his life. Don't be afraid to love people, but understand that the love you give to them is a reflection of the love you have for yourself. If you love somebody enough that they're going to focus on you, and now it's a symbiotic relationship and everything's working out great, that's a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
But when one is more important than the other, if that relationship is more important than my value, there's an imbalance. And in everything in nature, if there's an imbalance, there's a problem.
Yeah, no, I ain't never been that person, man.
Well, you protected yourself by building a heart of stone around yourself, and nobody's going to break Marcus. And Latoya's got you now, so I don't know.
I think Latoya put up with me. She put up with me, mainly because I do everything else. My father told me having a house of peace, making sure you provide for your family is the things that my father told me to do, which I do. I'm just not the best in affectionary. If it's time to be intimate, then I'm probably more affectionate. If it's not, I ain't thinking about it. I'm hustling, working, so this is who I am. But I think just for me, you having this conversation is helping me understand how to better treat Marcus Jr. because he has my name, and he's going to be 18 soon. I think it's going to be killing me when prom night comes and all this stuff comes, and it's just running through my head of all things I've seen. And trying to protect him, I'm just trying to figure that out. But before we go into Exodus, any father that's listening, can you give them like maybe 3 key things they need to do as a father to be a better father before we go into Exodus? Yeah,
so as a father, don't be their friend. I made that mistake. I was their friend first. So you have to have clear boundaries. The relationship is, I'm your father. Mm-hmm. This is the expectation that I have for you.
Yeah.
And then you hold them to that expectation.
Okay.
My job is to your job as a parent is feed them, clothe them, and shelter them. Mm-hmm. Prepare them for when they leave. Like the birds kicking them out of the nest. My job is to keep you safe until you leave. Yeah. And then it's on you, right? Yeah. That's what your mom said. You grown.
Yeah, you grown.
My job is to provide for them to get to that point. To help them prepare. If you're their friend, they're making bad choices. Hey, how cool is it? I'm drinking with my dad at 15 years old.
Wow.
No, that did not happen. But I'm just saying, there's a lot of family that does that, right? And I'd rather them drink here where it's safe. Well, then they make excuses for why they're drinking somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And so, don't be their friend. You've got to be their parent.
Okay.
Get them where they're supposed to be. Set high level of standards for them.
Okay.
Don't accept mediocrity.
Okay.
You don't accept it for yourself.
Yeah.
Don't accept it for them.
Got it.
Give them high, lofty goals to achieve, and then hold them accountable to that. And I think the last thing I would say to any father is to understand and empathize, because we've all done it. Yeah. Kids think that we're all stupid and we didn't experience the same thing. But we've all lived that life and we understand what it's like to be 15 years old. Yeah. So come at it from a point of empathy. I understand where you're coming from. Here's what I've done. Here's what how I've dealt with it. So that they know that you're a real person. Don't be a mythical person that, they think that your parent is this all-wise, amazing person, infallible maybe. And it's like, I've lived that life. I know what is good and what is bad and the right choices. I'm a real person too. Just because I'm your dad doesn't mean that I'm perfect or that I've got all the answers. Yeah. Because there's there's plenty of books out there to read and they're all contradictory, right? Yeah. So you got to find one that works for you and stay consistent to it.
Well, I think the thing, number 3 is what you got me on, is being empathetic. Because I know I'm aggressive. So with MJ, I had to be more empathetic. And having a child with autism is a whole different animal. I tell people it's a whole different animal. But if he can send text messages, I told my wife, you can freaking learn anything you need to learn. He can send text messages to love you. He knows. So the empathetic is where I want to I take from this podcast is when I go pick him up this afternoon and we're eating, I'm just going to look at him and say, all right, Mark, you got to be more empathetic. So when your son makes a mistake, or if he asks questions, you don't lash at him, because I don't want my son to be scared to talk to dad. Even though my parents said you put the fear of God in them, so they don't mess with you. So both of my boys know don't mess with dad. But I just see my oldest son in a whole different animal. But man, I appreciate that. Let's tell people about what you do with the professions. We close it out. You're VP of Sales at Exodus HR. So for those who's listening, who are needing payroll services, tell them a bit about Exodus and what you guys provide. And as we close out, you can tell them how to contact you if they need to get some information or anything.
Perfect. Well, so yeah, I'm at Exodus HR Group, your outsourced HR and payroll team. Mm-hmm. We take care of everything that relates to your employees. So we keep you compliant. There's so many rules and regulations at a local, state, and federal level that you have to be aware of.
Yeah.
And you're not good at that. So what we do is we say, come work with us. We'll take care of the administrative stuff. We'll pay your people. If you need HR support, we provide that as well. Handbooks, everything. Difficult conversations, how to guide those things. Today's world, the HR diplomas that you get when you go to university, it's industrial psychology. The first time I'd heard that, I'm like, wow, that's fancy.
Yeah,
so fancy. It's all about learning how to affect cultures using the same tools that you get in school for psychology. Yeah. You apply it to a larger group and you affect change in your culture at work. Mm-hmm. And so we have those certified folks that work with you. Mm-hmm. The thing that separates us from a lot of our competitors is you're going to get a dedicated person on your payroll side and a dedicated person on your HR side. Mm-hmm. So no more dialing for dollars, trying to find somebody that's going to answer phone and answer a question, and you got to wait for help. We're going to answer the phone in 2 rings or less and take care of that call right now.
Well, we are a client.
You are. We love you.
Is it almost 2 years?
It is. We started 1 year ago in January. We've known each other for 2.
And you started in January of 2023. So it's been a year.
Yeah,
and like I said, look, I ain't leaving.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, so that 1 year seemed like a lot longer. So.
Well, I appreciate your support, and I appreciate you taking time in your busy day to sit down, because I know fatherhood is not an easy thing to talk about, because you got to relive things that you talk about, and some people is good, some people is like it's a little bit tough, but tell people how they can get in contact with you, and so if they need payroll, HR services, they have the information.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to get in touch with us and my team is to go to our website, which is exodushrgroup.com.
Okay.
And you'll be able to find us, and there's a contact me page, and you can fill it out and get some help. And you can always call you or me if anybody knows us, they've got our information. So always available.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this episode. It seemed like I'm interviewing you, and then you turn back and interview me. That happens a lot. Some reason when I come to Jim's studio, it turns to a therapy session. We had to sit get rid of these couches, Jim, because that's what happens. Every time I come here, somebody got to give me some therapy lessons. But hey, you guys, thank you so much for listening to Stronger Than My Father podcast, your most trusted podcast that's centered around restoring fatherhood. Hey, if you like what you hear today, please like and subscribe to all our social media platforms. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all these areas where you can find information about our podcast, and share, let people know that we are talking about fatherhood. And also, if you like what you hear, please leave a donation of $25 or more to help us keep this podcast on the air. Gotta pay Jim. So I need you guys' support. Please support Stronger Than My Father at strongerthanmyfather.org/podcast. Thank you for listening, and I can't wait to talk to the next guest on Stronger Than My Father podcast. God bless you. Stay safe.